From the land of melting lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Twin Cities sports scene. So let's see, Wally, we're into March. Some people call it March Madness. Some say March Mayhem. Whatever your choice of phraseology is.
Yes.
A lot going on in this month. It's similar to October. You've got Major League Soccer, you've got college hoops, you've got the NBA, the NHL. Of course, Bigfoot always hangs around the NFL. But what about Major League Baseball? MLB used to own March with the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League. And boy, it's almost like barely a whimper coming out of Southwest Florida with your Minnesota Twins. Is anybody even anticipating the start of another season? Do they care?
Yeah. Well, the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it.
In this case, a palm tree.
A palm tree, yes. Did it really go down? Did it make a sound? Yeah, that's a great question. And you got to wonder, especially in this market, because, the Twins basically did very little in the offseason. I mean, I guess the big news is that the Pohlads, we've been over this 100 times. Pohlads are going to sell the team. Haven't got that buyer lined up quite yet. Dave St. Peter, longtime president, has now officially stepped down as president of the team. He's still going to be hanging around, helping out, but he's officially stepped down. Those are the two biggest headlines for this team since last October when they tanked the last month or so of the season. And, they made a couple of, pickups. They picked up Ty France to play first base. He's been having a decent spring, and they picked up Harrison Bader to play some outfield for him, but I don't know. I've had a hard time following them. I don't see them on television. I guess I caught one spring training game on TV. Byron Buxton, by the way, is now the longest tenured Minnesota Twin.
with an asterisk by it, of course.
Well, yeah.
With all the games he's missed. But I think, we pound on this drum all the time. But I think for the Twins going into this season, obviously, you're going to need guys to step up. First and foremost, your starting rotation,
right,
middle relief, your bullpen, etc. But then, can you keep Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, your three linchpins, your three stars on the field? If you do, and they play more than they sit, this could be a very good baseball team. But we know that's a huge if. Mm-hmm. There's other things that are, swirling around the team. You mentioned those signings that flew very much under the radar in Harrison Bader and Ty France. But they could end up being key acquisitions if everyone else that I just mentioned is in that lineup and contributing. So I don't sense a lot of buzz here in Minnesota about the Twins. They'll open up in St. Louis, and then they go to the Chicago White Sox before the home opener, April 3 against Houston. I would guess they'll get about 30,000 for that one. And then the second game against the Astros,
get about 8,000.
Yeah, exactly. You can probably get in for less than $10 on the secondary market. So they're going to have to get out of the gate fast, win some games,
right,
win back the fan base, and hope for good weather too, because that's a big part of April and May in Minnesota, as you know.
Yeah, for sure. And win baseball games, as you said. I mean, I think that you get off to a slow start, plus the bad weather, man, people write you off in a huge hurry. They'll find other things to do here in the summer in Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love going to Target Field, and it's one of the best venues in all of Major League Baseball, but they got to play winning baseball. And the Twins know this. I mean, this is no secret. They have to win people back again. And this is 2 years after you made that run in the postseason, and we'll call it a run for the Twins because they hadn't won a playoff game since back in the early 2000s. They lost 18 in a row before they finally broke that hex, beating Toronto, and then actually winning a game from Houston in the second round. But here we are again, living in the past. I mean, they've got to figure out a way to not only compete in the Central Division in the American League, but compete for an American League championship and potentially get to the World Series. When's the last time we really felt like that was a strong possibility?
No, probably maybe the early 2000s.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, honestly, that the Bomba squad year, that maybe if they could somehow keep it going in the postseason in 2019, that would happen. But we saw that it didn't. We saw that pitching matters in the postseason and defense matters in the postseason. And especially when they changed the baseball, they stopped using that Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they ran into the New York Yankees.
Well, that's the other piece.
That's their kryptonite. And I think the other thing in play here, it was almost like a tease to the fans in Twins territory, where the Pohlad family said, okay, the team's on the blocks. We're going to sell it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people started, fantasizing about, hey, getting in somebody that's willing to write checks and maybe, recommit, change the culture somewhat.
Right.
And now the Ishbia brothers, Justin and Matt, are no longer in the equation. They're trying to figure out the woeful Phoenix Suns. So is the team still for sale? I think it is.
I think so.
Is there stuff percolating behind the scenes that we don't know about? Probably. But at this point in time, at least from 34,000 feet, they're in a holding pattern. It's still the Pohlad family making the ultimate decisions. And we know that, let's say this team's very good at the end of July and they're one or two pieces away from maybe making a serious run. Will they add that piece or two?
Boy,
history says they won't.
I seriously doubt it. Yeah. So, all right. Subject 2, the boys state hockey tournament this weekend. And this is probably, I think it's safe to say, this is the pinnacle of all the state tournaments here in the state of Minnesota. This is the one that at least registered on a national scale and certainly does across the state of Minnesota. You got the defending state champs from Edina in Class AA, they're in it. Moorhead's the number 1 team in the state, they're in it. And then over in Class A, you got Hibbing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Hibbing coming up in a few minutes here with our guest Pat Michelitti, because he, of course, is a former Hibbing star that led them to the state tournament back in 1982. But they're a Class A favorite. So,
yeah, it's always one of those tournaments, as you said, it garners national attention. I mean, Howard Cosell, I think, was part of a broadcast way back in the day.
You're right.
And, the XL Energy Center, there's quite a vibe and quite a buzz around those games, Class A, Class AA. You'd have to rank it right up there with, the Indiana State basketball tournament and high school football in Texas, which is monstrous. So it's got that kind of cachet.
No doubt.
Should be fun, and it's not cheap.
No.
You got to fork out some money. It's almost like going to a Wild game.
Oh, boy. Don't get me on that one. Jeez Louise. All right, we are going to talk to Pat Michelitti coming up next.
10K Takes, your spring training ticket.
Seeing clearly matters. Being seen matters more. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team-building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so we're always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
Well, it is that time of year. March Madness upon us. Boys State Hockey Tournament, Girls State Hockey Tournament already happened in February. But the Boys State Hockey Tournament. And we're going to be joined now by a guy who played way back when in the state hockey tournament.
Thank
he
you.
Starred for Hibbing in his high school days, starred for the Gophers for 4 years. Our friend Pat Michelitti, who, of course, does television for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. Let's talk state tournament. You were there 1982 as a player, and you told us before the broadcast you were actually there about 6 or 7 years earlier as a stick boy. Explain that story for us.
Well, in the summer, guys, all of the high school teams up on the Iron Range. Hibbing was the only one that had ice in the summer. So me being the rink rat that I would always go there every night. And whether it be Virginia coming in or Grand Rapids or Eveleth or whoever, they were always short guys and they scrimmage or whatever. So I hung around there and they needed a guy. I would jump on the ice. So long story short, I got to really know the guys from Grand Rapids quite a bit. The Bill Rothstein, Jim Jetlands, those type of guys. And and so I'd follow what they did during the year and what Hibbing obviously was doing. So anyway, the region final was always in Hibbing and in the semifinals. And so I just kind of hung around their team and went on their bench and they had no problem with it. And then finally they won the region championship. Then I just told, I don't know if it was Mike Sertich, who was the assistant, or Jim Nelson, hey, I want to come down with you guys. I'm your good luck charm. And they said, sure, why not? And so I went down on the bus with them and stayed in a hotel room and
Oh, wow.
and sat on the bedroom. And that was at the Met Center back then. It was still at the Met Center, and it was fabulous. And sure enough, Grand Rapids won the title that year. So
As like
that
a
was a lot of
12-year-old.
fun.
So you were at the state
Yeah.
tournament as a 12-year-old. That might be some kind of record, Pat.
Yeah, exactly, right? At least I could say I kind of won a championship, but not, didn't play.
Yeah,
But I was part of it, and it was a lot of fun.
sure.
Paint the picture. I mean, you're up there on the Iron Range. You take the bus
Yeah.
ride down to the Twin Cities. That's a huge deal. It's small town Minnesota, and you roll into the metro area, and just all the hype and the enthusiasm about what it's like to go to the state tournament when you're from somewhere like the Iron Range, where hockey is king.
Well, I didn't. I appreciated it much more that year, but I'll take you back 3 years earlier. All right, when I was 9 years old in 1973, when the Hibbing Blue Jackets made it to the state tournament through the back door.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
remember, only 8 teams back then, and so the loser of Section 7 played the loser of Section 8 and went down as the winner of Section 8, I believe it was. I don't know how it all worked. But anyway, my brother Joe's senior year, and that year he had 8 goals in the state tournament. They beat Bemidji in the first game. They beat, and who was the winner of Section 8 by the way that year. They beat International Falls, who they lost to in the region final. They upset them and then beat Alexander Ramsey in the final that year. And Hibbing had the 3 fastest goals. I don't know if it still stands, but 3 goals in 23 seconds in the
Wow.
state final game.
Wow.
Yep.
Goodness.
And I remember those days. But I didn't have the appreciation for it then because I was younger, as I did being really on the ice with that Grand Rapids team. 3 years later.
Okay. So actually on the ice, and obviously a key
Yeah.
component on the 1982 Hibbing team that you played on and went to the state tournament. So what was the feel? I mean, how, kind of what Eric just asked, but as a player heading down to the state tournament, having already experienced it basically as a stick boy and as a fan of your brother and so on and so forth,
well-
what was it like for you then to skate on that squad that went to the state tournament?
Well, let me tell you, it was really, really hard to get there. And remember, I played as a freshman, and so I did not get there until I was a senior. And my freshman year, we were eliminated early, but my sophomore year and my junior year, we lost in the region final to Grand Rapids. Okay, they were a power, and we're the power on the range. And so I remember that day in my head, the section final game, sold out Hibbing Memorial Arena, over 4,000 people in there.
Wow.
And I remember that day, that morning, because we had lost the previous 2 years, and I went to the principal's office that morning of the game, and I said, can you please allow our team to have a quick meeting? I was a captain that team along with Scott Sandelin, and so we gathered everybody in a room, and I distinctly remember telling everybody, this is it. This is why we're playing. We cannot let this slip away. We're not going to get beat 3 years in a row by this team. And lucky enough, we were able to win that night. And, just getting there, just winning that game was, that was the big thing for us to get down there. And,
Right.
and, I have to say, going into that game, we were the number one rated team in the state, number one or number two, with Edina, Cloquet was in there. And so, that it was pretty special.
Yeah.
What about the sustainability of this tournament now over the decades, Pat? I mean, when you think about outstanding, prep championship events, high school football, Texas, hoops in Indiana, and everybody's comes to hockey in Minnesota. And it's been able to continue at the same pace for all these years. In fact, it just keeps evolving and growing and trending up. Are you surprised?
You know what? I was a little nervous when, and it turned out to be a great thing, by the way, but I was a little nervous when they went from 8 to 16 teams, meaning the tier 1, tier 2, class A, class AA. Wasn't it tier 1, tier 2 initially,
Right. For
and
a couple
then
of years, yeah.
then AA and A. And so I thought, okay, what are we doing? And it took a couple years, but what it did, it expanded hockey all over the state in places, south, west, east, even farther up north. And so you got more kids involved. You got more players developing. And so it has only grown more and more each year. And you watch a Class A game now, and I'm telling you, we've had some unbelievable games, championship games in this tournament. So it's gotten better because we have we're not basketball, right? We're not football. We in our hockey community, we have just a core group, and that core group has expanded now. And you'll have people there, and you guys know this from being at the tournament and doing a great job on the broadcasts every year, is that you have people that have had tickets for 50 years, and they don't want to give them up, and or they pass them down, and because they bring their grandkids, and then their grandkids get older, and they don't want to give them up, and it's a staple every year, and we're lucky to have it, and we're proud of it, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was going to ask you about the AAA, but you took the thunder from my question. But I will say this. It is fun to watch that A championship now, because if you remember those first few years of the A championship, they had a hard time filling that lower bowl, but that's not the case anymore. And the Little Falls of the world. You mentioned schools that were never on the scene in double when it was one tournament. Now that you got the two tournaments, a school like Little Falls or Alexandria, I mean, I can go down the list of those schools that have all of a sudden appeared.
And guess what? They're producing really good players.
Right.
If you look back at the number of players that come out of Class A, that eventually, now it's different. You go to junior first, and you see these guys excel at a very high level, and that's just wonderful to see.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, you're a legend. It's Bob Dylan, Kevin McHale, Pat Micheletti up in Hibbing. So I don't know what order either. So I won't rank it.
I'm way down the list. But thank you.
Well, you're high on our list. Thanks so much, Pat.
Well,
Appreciate
thanks.
you joining us on this State Hockey Week. It's a great week, and Minnesota celebrates it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Thanks.
He is Pat Micheletti, the former Gopher who starred with Hibbing back in the day. We're back with more here on 10,000 Takes after this timeout. Stay with us. Thanks, Patrick.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks a
Have
lot.
a good call next week, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hey,
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Wally and Eric from 10,000 Takes here in the land of lakes. And if you want sports of all sorts, check us out. We cover all the bases, all the teams in the great state of Minnesota.
Vikings, Twins, Wild, Gophers, Timberwolves, Loons, you name it, we do it. Late night Saturday night on Fox 9 Plus and on the Fox local app.
He clears it down. There's a few seconds left in the game. And he's on the breakaway. He's sticking out
The goalie, he shoots, he scores! Far down for the game winner. And that is all, folks. Good night.
More than just a rink, create a backyard ice-perience with frozen memories to last a lifetime.
Well, as you like to say, the National Football League is never off the clock.
No.
And no more so than this coming week when NFL free agency opens up. And I guess the big news for Minnesota Vikings fans happened earlier this week when the Vikings decided not to extend that franchise tag to Sam Darnold, who played quarterback for him and who played for $10 million this past season and was great for the most part. But they would have had to pay him $40 million on the franchise tag. Not so good. So they decided, hey, we'll try and negotiate with him, but we ain't handing him $40 million.
Yeah, so they roll the dice a bit. Sam gets to jump into the free agent waters. Maybe he makes a big splash. It only takes one team.
Right.
And then he's gone. But maybe not. What tape are they going to look at? The 14 wins in the regular season?
Oh, boy.
Or that final game against Detroit and the playoff loss to the L.A. Rams? I think it's unfair to blame Sam for those two defeats, but he did not shine when the spotlight was at its brightest. By the way, happy NFL New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The NFL is so huge. It has its own calendar. They have their own New Year, and it starts early next week with this free agency frenzy. And already, just off the top, Darius Slay's out there on the market. Devontae Adams is going to be on the market. Your hero, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Where does he land?
He's available, baby. He's not going to be with the Jets. We know that.
No.
How about Kirk Cousins?
How about Kirk Cousins?
I mean, so
would you take him back for $10 million a year?
Ooh, no.
You've had enough, huh?
I'm good. You know what? Kirk won't sign for $10 million a year. Kirk's all about the money.
Well, he's a very good businessman.
Oh, he's done well.
Yeah.
He's done well.
I think he's going to have to dumb down his expectations a bit, though.
Yeah?
He's not he's not a pony anymore. He's an aging horse.
Do you think he'd be willing to carry a clipboard?
Ooh. Only if that's his last option. That would be my guess. What about Russell Wilson?
Same category?
Yeah, and I think you could get him relatively cheap. Is he what you want? Or, I don't know, at the Combine, why did Cam Ward from Miami have a Minnesota Vikings cap on his backpack?
Really?
I guess he had Cleveland, too, so maybe they were just gifts.
I would think so. Well, Cleveland's got a much better chance. They got the number 2 overall pick.
Yes.
That would be worth it,
Cam Ward has said, he who doesn't take me will regret it. Kind of a Randy Moss stance.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. From what I've seen, I like the guy. I'd certainly take my chances.
Yeah,
with him.
well, why not?
Do you have an offensive line in Cleveland? That's the question.
No, they do
You have no structure there.
No, they're in trouble because they're not going to have much defense after they lose half their defensive line.
Yeah, maybe Myles Garrett comes to Minnesota.
Well, that'd be all right, too. We'll take them, Minnesota.
Or Detroit or Well, we'll find out shortly, folks.
Yes, we will. All right. We will also find out shortly what your take of the day is. Takes of the day coming up next. This is 10,000 Takes. Stay with us.
Seeing clearly matters. Being seen matters more. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team-building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
10K Takes on television as we wrap up yet another episode. Big shout out to the viewers in the Twin Ports, the Twin Cities,
yes,
up and down that I-35 corridor, and they want to know what your mood is.
Well, I don't know if I'm moody this week or not, but as we previously discussed, Sam Darnold is on the move, potentially. The Minnesota Vikings, of course, taking a pass on giving him the franchise tag and handing him $40 million. They have $60 million in cap space. They don't want to spend 40 of it on Sam, apparently. So I give him credit for that. Probably a smart move. So where will Sam Darnold land? Well, reports are that the New York Football Giants may be at the top of the list. How ironic, because the Vikings have the Giants' former quarterback in their radar right now, Daniel Jones. They signed him at the end of last season, if you recall. Other possibilities, the Raiders, believe it or not. I'm not sure that that's going to work out. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who keep juggling quarterbacks. Is it Russell Williams? Is it Justin Fields? Who knows? And potentially the Tennessee Titans. So where Sam Darnold and his pocketbook are going to end up, good question, but it's likely that he will not get paid $40 million by anyone.
All right, well, let's check out that mood meter. He's a happy camper. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that they didn't spend the $40 million on that.
So he's giving
franchise tag.
Quezzy and the group props. All right, fair enough. That's too much on anybody, in my opinion.
Yes.
All right, well, my take of the day, I'm just going to give a salute to Jimmy Johnson, who is leaving the Fox studio set after 31 years working with Howie and Terry and Kurt Menefee and now Michael Strahan and Gronk. A great run for
too many
Jimmy
people.
Johnson. Yeah, a lot of cooks in the kitchen
yes.
there. But a pure football guy. He's in rare air. He won a national title at Miami with the Hurricanes, 2 Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys. And, oh, by the way, that came courtesy of maybe the worst trade in the history of sports when the Minnesota Vikings gave up a ton of picks and a ton of players to get Herschel Walker, and Jimmy Johnson and Dallas cashed in to the tune of winning 2 Super Bowls. And then, of course, when Jimmy got pushed out of Dallas by Jerry Jones in an ego clash, Barry Switzer came in and won another Super Bowl. So they got 3 rings out of that trade with Minnesota, and the Vikings are still looking for a Lombardi trophy. So, yes, Jimmy Johnson, he's got a yacht appropriately named 3 Rings. He'll be sailing up and down the coast of Miami and SoFlo and all that good stuff, enjoying the sun.
Yeah,
and on that note, we got to go. So I want to thank everybody for making this show possible. We are 10K Takes, your sports ticket.